Hello and welcome along to Ballees Centre Kilmarnock's first ever webinar, Low Ballees Milking on a High. I am Gary Leach, owner and manager of Ballees Centre Kilmarnock. Firstly, I would like to thank the Campbell family for allowing us to host this virtual farm tour of their farm Low Ballees. They are providing a fantastic example of family farming progressing into the next generation. In this webinar, Logan Dunlop, our sales manager, will introduce the Campbell family and present questions to them in relation to their journey at Low Ballees and in particular what they have achieved over the last 18 months or so. Jim Curry, our farm management support advisor, will be chatting to vet Alan Walker and nutritionist Matt Gilliland to discuss in more detail overall changes found in the health, production and profitability of the cows. At the end of this virtual farm tour, we invite you to stay online to participate in our live question and answer session, where our excellent speakers will be available to answer any further questions you may have. So please sit back, relax, and I will pass you over to Logan, who will steer us through the journey of Low Ballees milking on a high.
Thanks, Gary. And firstly, I'd like to introduce Tom and son David, who along with Tom's wife Marion and father John have built up a very well-run, productive and profitable mixed but mainly dairy farm. It's always good to hear how successful farmers got to where they are today. So could you please give me a brief history on your time as farmers?
I'll start off, Logan. Probably 40 years farming here now as part of the family partnership. My grandfather took the tenancy in 1928. It's 100 acres and traditional steading. He's a large family and all raised here. So I went into the partnership in 1982 after leaving school with four standard grades. I was glad to leave. And at that time, the biggest restriction was the farm was only 100 acres and rented, and there wasn't. We started with a very small milk quota. That was one of the first restrictions: was lack of land, lack of quota. We worked away. I worked away from home part of the time. We worked at home. My mother and father worked very hard here and built up to then about 70 dairy cows. But the quota was a big restriction and became a bigger and bigger cost. So through the 90s, we developed the farm even more and get into loose housing, cubicles, silage pits, etc., which was quite difficult in a tenancy, but just kept working away on a kind of programme of improvements. By the year 2000, we get the opportunity to buy the farm as a tenant, right. Which was one of the lucky breaks we had. And just directly after that, the neighbouring farm, part of it came available. So within 5 years of that, we then bought that extra ground, which took us to 200 acres, and we were able to expand some more, but we had to get into sheep and beef and a little bit arable because obviously the milk quota was a huge barrier. Yeah. And then in the 2013-2014, it was the next generation David that was shown real interest in how we were going to structure the farm for the next stage. So we took that point of buying another 85 acres close by, took us to just over 300 acres owned, which is a huge step in under 15 years. So David came back for uni in 2016, right. Yeah. And at that point he had to make a decision where the direction the farm was going, and basically I'll hand over to David. There was a whole series of things happened in the next 5 years which kind of accelerated the pace of change.
No, thanks. As Dad said, I come home that year, and then the following year since then we've done pretty much a project every year. The last 85 acre we bought was in quite poor heart, if we're being honest, and it took quite a bit of restoration. Everything from Slurry Lagoon up the top of the field to cow tracks, and the culmination of all of that was building this unit you see behind us, which was commissioned in 2019, and it's fairly brought the farm on in terms of the cattle as well. So that's been
yeah, good. I remember when speaking previously to you, Tom, you outlined how your farming career has always been focused on overcoming limiting factors. Could you maybe explain and expand on that
Well, as I said
for our
earlier,
virtual viewers, really?
as I said earlier, Logan, the biggest restricting factor through the 80s, everybody thought milk quotas were there to help the smaller farmer. In fact, it actually stagnated it because the price of quota became an extra cost to operate. And anybody who's improving their cows, improving their land, was going to produce more milk, then had that additional licence to buy. So that was a restriction we got over by just biting the bullet basically and buying more than we needed and leasing some back. So that got us past that, and then the next restriction was obviously accommodation, and it's not cheap to increase cow numbers. So just kept looking at every restriction. It was quotas, then it was land. Once we get land, the restriction became actually the change in the climate, was not being able to graze the cows properly in some of the wetter months, which tended to be the summer months, July, August. So we put in cow tracks, that helped for a certain amount of time, but even at that, as cow numbers increased, the weather seemed to get worse. And we then started keeping the cows in and zero grazing. Once we started zero grazing, the capability of the cows and what they were given was rose. And the next restricting factor was cows needed to be milked more than twice a day. We did 3 times a day milking for a period of time, which worked really well for the cows, for the production, but not necessarily for the staff.
Yes.
And then we started looking at, if the cows are in all the time, you need proper accommodation, airy, bright, where the cows would actually prefer to be inside than outside. And we think we've created that. When we started looking at that, obviously the next generations come along. I'd been tied to the parlour for 25 years, morning and night.
Labour was
Didn't mind. Labour is an issue, getting someone that you can trust, that's skillful enough to give you relief milking. And when David was talking about doing this shed, it originally was a parlour was an idea. And I pointed out to him that I'm now heading for 55. I'm now past 55, up to the decision I was heading for it. And you would have to look at what does that look like in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
And we started thinking about robots, and was that going to be the answer? And it has been.
Well, I don't imagine you woke up one morning and decided to install 2 Lely astronaut robots. But can you tell us what was really the initial light bulb moment that set it off? Where did you go for advice and inspiration? What were the main benefits you hoped to achieve?
Cows were housed, as I said, we'd done that already, and with the zero grazing, just as a climate my dad was talking about. And again, we looked at all the benefits of 3 times a day milking, and labour was the next limit, and that kind of put us towards automation, just as my dad was saying. It was just a gradual progression. I wouldn't say there was a kind of one light bulb moment, but we just started working through it, and then that was when we just decided that this was the direction we were going to take. So we approached Lely Kilmarnock at Highland Show about it, and Gary came and saw us the next couple of weeks. Originally we'd talked about trying to retrofit in there, and the guidance that he'd done for the years he's done it, that we built this extension onto the shed and added 105 foot onto the existing unit, which made use of the existing buildings we had, plus putting this on it. We just progressed from there. We went and saw quite a few different farms that were making a really good job of what they were doing, and that really kind of set us and set in stone that we made the right decision to move down the robot route, and so where we are today.
I would say for me, what really changed it was not only could the robots milk them at least 3 times a day, up to 5 times a day, but it's all the other things that come with the robots.
Yeah.
Your heat time system comes with them, your activity, the way you can monitor the health of the cows, the way you can manage them as individuals, the whole information, even down to managing your dry cows. So for me, I was thinking that not maybe taking it easier, but there are days when David's on his own. To have a system that gives him the ability to manage it without having a 14-hour day.
Yes.
You've got the information to do what you do, target where you need to be.
That's right.
Early intervention. So the robots don't just milk the cows.
Oh no, that's right. Yeah.
And a lot of people think it's just a replacement for somebody sticking clusters on. It's not. It is, but it's not only that.
What was really frustrating me, as I've always enjoyed what I do, don't get me wrong, but I was not enjoying when things weren't getting done right on the farm purely because of lack of time and lack of available labour, and freeing up the time to spend time in the cows in the areas that matter, fertility, health, production, and getting everything just to fit in right because I've got that ability now has been that's really helped out.
Yeah, good. After deciding on robot milkers, you seem to have gone all in with having the Discovery 120 collector, the Hoover as we talk about as well, and also the Juno silage pusher. Can you give the reasons for this further investment and the advantages?
Always worries me when a salesman says all in. So it does. But
I would say, unfortunately, it's nothing to do with the brand. The products are right. So there's this idea that because you've got Lely robots, you'll buy a Lely scraper or you'll buy a Lely pusher. We bought the Lely pusher because it's the one we thought was doing the best job for what it does. We bought the Lely vacuum scraper because that was the one that replaced the system we had and did the best job.
Originally
it wasn't because it's the same colour as the robots.
Right. Originally we
it's
had
the same brand, but it's not because of the brand.
Yeah. Originally we had pallet scrapers in the old shed, and to do what we had to do, we had to put chains right up, and we'd ended up with turning squares in the loafing area behind us. And when you actually look at the cost of that Lely scraper compared to suspending the floor of the shed, it's an absolute no-brainer as far as we were concerned for what we were doing, and it's been a great thing.
And the real sweet win with it was it applies water in the summertime or any time it's dry, so you don't get slippery passages.
That's right.
So the expense of the scraper against cows and slippery passages.
And it's probably the freedom of movement as well, with not having the steer slurry as well, with having scrapers in or whatever.
The cows used to get more trouble stepping over the old mechanical scrapers, which were great and reliable. They used to get more trouble with that. But now they just give this robot a kind of sideways commands and treat it like a passing cow. You know, there's no problem with it whatsoever. So you were used to the chains, you were used to the metal scrapers. You also knew the tripped over them, you also knew all kinds of feet skited on them, and you knew it wasn't great. Eliminating that has been a big bonus.
There's been a big increase in the hoof health from having a collector in, because you've not got this wave of slurry going up the heels. That's been a big difference. But as Dad said, some might see it as you've got the full Lely package, but I just think we've got lots of things that make the shed work better.
And the cows like to play on them. But what I would say is that a phrase my father regularly uses: people used to milk in buyers because they didn't know any better. They used to milk in milking parlours because they didn't know any better. But it is better. You know, once you do it, you realise it is an improvement.
One of the things that I've noticed really was your builder has made a fantastic job in here, and I think we all can see that today, but there is a few unique design features in here that I think was probably your own specification as well. Just wondered if you wanted to say a few things about them.
So mainly, it's actually quite like it, this chance. It's a big thank you to D&G Reid who've done the build. Their attention to detail is just tremendous. Really pleased working with them. There's a few wee things done in the clean room. I was quite what's the word I'm looking for? I wanted curved return races through the centre passage. I'd seen places with rails, I'd seen places with kind of makeshift things built. So we managed to shutter curved concrete with a Duraflex coating on it, which made a great difference for when the cows are coming through the robot into the back pen, because usually if they're going into the back pen there's a reason for it, and they've got that security of the curved wall and no sharp angles. Again, you'll see in the collecting pen there, at every beam where there's a chance a cow could catch herself, we've shuttered curved concrete around each beam, and stops any cows catching themselves when they're walking past it. And the Reids have just made a great job altogether. And another person that should get notice is Drew Gemmell, who's done the joinery work at the office upstairs, and Colin Burns for the wiring. They've made a great job, and we should get a chance to thank them for what they've done.
Right, well, once everything came together, when you did all this and the robots were all installed one way or another, how did your startup go, and how did your parlour milk cows adapt to the robot?
We can safely say, and some people might doubt what I'm saying here, there wasn't one cow that rejected the robots, and there wasn't one cow that the robots rejected. Every cow made the transition through, which was great to see. Startup itself, looking back on it, was actually quite an enjoyable thing. We were lucky that somebody had worked with us. Somebody that had worked with us in previous years was available, so we had him for a couple of months round about the start-up time. So we split the shift on this actual start-up when we were teaching the cows between my dad and myself, and Alistair was doing the rest of the work round about, which really took the weight off. And aye.
Must be youth that gives a different recollection, because I remember it as very tiring. Yourself and Logan and everybody else had told us before the start up, make sure you get plenty of sleep because you're going to have a lot of work. And it did end up similar to a lambing. You end up 2-3 weeks later you've lost, because you're concentrating on getting them right. But the work that I would advise anybody who puts robots in, if you put the effort in the first fortnight, 3 weeks, the rest of the year will be easier.
That's right.
Because the transition from not knowing what a robot is to loving the robots takes time and persuasion.
But if you enjoy working with cows, enjoy working with your cows, your start-up is just a couple of weeks of working with cows and teaching them and working through. And
I mean, it's a complete change of routine to then, from not being gathered up, not being put in a collect area twice a day, to being taken to a robot and having to wait one at a time to get through, and some would take longer, and having that constant routine. I remember the Saturday night we decided, right, we're taking away the Holden gates and we'll let them free access, and been pleasantly surprised, 80-90% of the cows just took it. But the fortnight of persistent, repetitive work, which for somebody at David's age is kind of used to it. I was in my bed.
you started getting crabbit, so that's when you need a sleep.
Thanks for now, Tom and David. It's time now to meet the senior management of Ballees, the father and grandfather of the family, Mr. John Campbell. Hello, John.
Yes, hello.
I'm sure you will have seen a great many changes in your lifetime of farming. Can I ask you, John, what did you think when the robots were first mentioned, and what do you think now?
Well, I never thought they would come as popular. I mean, they're getting quite popular now. I mean, and I thought it was out with our bounds again. But when did you start talking about it, telling me?
Long after we decided.
Aye. Come in one night and he says, I'm thinking getting robots.
Robots in,
I says, that didn't want to say you have your head or something. But I said to him, he says, well, I'll actually get them ordered. It's funny case you tell me now after he did order. This is how it went. But I mean, with me being no mobile, I didn't see the actual building of the... I think when I saw it, I mean, the idea of the spiral staircase up out there and looking out, it was great. But the first time I saw the milking, I saw this thing getting in below the top end of
the arm getting in, yes.
I says, Christ, it'll get kicked to bits, that thing again. And I mean, because I've been milking cows for 70 years.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't swallow it for a wee while to see it again.
Actually, how it does it, yes.
And I mean, even to get in and get out of the thing, I thought it'd be a mammoth job teaching them to get in and out. But David made a wonderful job. He wasn't doing much else at that time. For the first 30 days, it was wonderful that was seeing them get out and in.
After a few weeks they were...
They see the increase in milk is just unbelievable. But still in all, it's not just all milk, it's not all robots. They're eating a lot more than ever they ate. One thing when you're milking them, the buyer,
you get a couple of leaves of hay and a turnip.
And the one, I'm getting back 70 years, and I mean there's an awful changes in the dairy industry since then. I mean, and then of course the milking machine come on and that. But
you said about if a cow gave 10 gallon a day, that was tremendous.
Well, I think I said more run about your pals and that. Anyway, with one cow and right enough, we'd measured it into a 10-gallon can, and it wasn't a kick in the arse after 10 gallon a day. But now it's common.
That's right.
Even that, it took me a wee while to realise that he was talking sense, Ken, he was telling truth.
He's telling you the truth, aye.
Telling the truth.
Aye. So, good. What do you think of the heifers now? Now what they're like through the robots and how they were milking years ago for the production they're given now?
I mean, before the robots, before the new calf heifer come into the barn, quite often you had its tail or came to the back with it, but it didn't seem to bother these ones going in here.
That's right.
After they're in. Just they're getting fed, but they're getting fed then and all.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them at that time, they wouldn't be getting much more milk to feed their calf for a while.
Yeah. Aye, and you look at them now and some.
Oh, they're made out, they're made out.
Aye. They'd feed 10 calves now.
Eh?
And they would feed 10 calves now.
Aye, they would that. Aye, they've changed days.
Well, John, I'd just like to thank you for that.
You're welcome.
It's good of you to come in here and tell us about the past as well and go through all that with you, and your thoughts on everything.
Right, good.
I'm now going to hand over to Jim Curry, one of our farm management support advisors, to interview the farm vet Alan Walker, and then on to Matt Gilliland, the feed specialist and nutritionist, on some of the finer details of the health and nutrition management. Jim.
Cheers, Logan. I'd just like to welcome along here Alan Walker, the farm vet. Alan is a partner at Armour Vets in Mauchline and has been in the practice for over 15 years. Alan mainly works with the large animal side of the practice, but has a very keen interest in dairy nutrition and lameness throughout the herds. Alan's help and advice has been invaluable here to Team Campbell at Ballees, and we're keen to hear his thoughts and opinions of the herd today. Hello Alan, I know you have quite a bit of experience with Lely robotic milked and managed cows in your area. I'd just like you to summarise in both health and fertility what you find in these herds and what you've found here in the herd at Ballees as well.
Thanks, Jim. The herd at Ballees here has seen quite a dramatic change since the robots were installed. There's several reasons for this really. Well, you can see the comfort the cows are in behind us here just now, but the robots have meant these cows are starting to line a lot more and have feed availability for much longer in the day. Previous to this, these cows were getting milked 3 times a day through a reasonably sized parlour, but it was well maintained. But the cows ended up standing in the collecting area for 4 or 5 hours a day throughout over these 3 milkings. Now these cows have free access to the robots. They then have free access to the food 24/7 basically, and they've got more time to be able to lie. And we all know these cows lying is where they're ruminating, chewing their cud and actually producing the milk. We've seen quite a big improvement in foot condition over the herd really. There's a lot of reasons for this. Mainly again it goes hand in hand with the lying time and increased feed availability basically. And they're not obviously standing the robots. It's created a really low stress environment for the cows. They're able to stand here, get access to food. There's very little bullying. The environment's very quiet. We're not having to chase cows. The actual fresh calved heifers has made an awful difference to them. We're trying to get them calved in around the 2-year-old mark. Some heifers have also been purchased at around 2-year-old. They've had to change environment completely from where they were. These 2-year-old heifers, we're expecting them to produce milk, we're expecting them to grow, we're expecting them to get back in calve, and having changed where they've been living in the previous to that. And the heifers have transitioned seamlessly into this new system. Whereas before we were struggling with them, they were starting to lose a bit of flesh and they were getting bullied by the bigger, older cows.
So you find that the robots have tailored into their individual requirements basically, Alan?
Yes, so these young heifers are choosing their own routine basically.
Right.
They're heading to the robot when they want to get milked. They're heading there probably 4 times a day. They're able to lie when they want, they're able to get food when they want. We've seen one of the other big benefits we've seen, these cows are getting big lugs of concentrate cake for the yield we're producing, which is fine, but the rumen pH then bounces about all day long trying to sort itself out. Whereas just now these high yielders and the heifers are going in getting milked 4 times a day, they're getting 4 smaller feeds of concentrate, so rumen pH is more stable. And I think this has had a big impact on the feet condition, to be honest, because the body's sitting far more stable over the day.
And the rumen.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And fertility wise, where would you say that's improved?
I suppose it all goes hand in hand. We've got increased lying time, improved foot conditions, so the fertility has naturally just got away to a better start, really. The cow, we don't get this ketosis, acidosis at the start of lactation. We don't get the weight loss they've had because they're able to get access to feed for longer in the day. So that because they're getting less weight loss at a time, we get them back in season quicker, and we therefore get them back in calf quicker. Yeah. We've now got the interval to first service is down at 61 days at the minute. It was at 80 something days prior to the robots going in, so we've got a 20-day improvement there. But the actual conception rate to that first service has increased as well.
Yeah, with that. So Alan, what would you say is the main reason for these changes?
There's a couple of reasons, I suppose. One is the farmer here, David and his father, have both got more time to look after and manage these cows. Before they're in that parlour at the 3 milkings a day. They've now, although they're using the same labour hours, those labour hours are getting used differently. They're not standing milking the cows, they're basically looking after and managing these cows. So they've more time to monitor cow behaviour, check out for heats, but also the cows are living in that low stress environment. We're not chasing them anywhere. They're able to, as I said before, choose their own routine. So we're getting the benefit from both sides. The farmer has more time to manage and look after them, and the cow has that environment to live in.
Thanks so much for your interesting and informative answers, Alan, and you're very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're now going to hear from the farm nutritionist Matt Gilliland, a farm worker's son who has gained experience as a nutritionist through Mole Valley and NWF, but now operates independently in very successful feed-linked solutions. Hi Matt.
Hi Jim.
Since installation of the Lely robots here at Ballees, we've seen a massive increase in milk production in the herd. Can you explain how you've managed to bridge the energy gap and maintain this milk production in the cows and the health as well?
Well Jim, first of all, the Lely astronauts have allowed us to tap into the genetic potential for the cows here at Ballees.
Yep.
The high milk production is achieved without stressing the cows. Tom and David help immensely by producing high quality silage and whole crop.
Yep.
And grow their own cereals as well to incorporate in the diet.
Okay.
The astronauts allow us to target feed precisely to the production, and a good helping hand in bridging the energy gap initially has been able to feed a little propylene glycol for the first 40 days.
Yep. Right.
This helps us to bridge that energy gap, and it just keeps the cows in
early lactation.
Yeah, and high production.
And how have you found the overall profitability of the herd since moving to robots as well?
Profitability is very good. Tom, David and I we targeted because of the milk price a maximum of 9.2 pence per litre for concentrates fed. Currently we're at 7.83 pence, which is 28.5% of the milk check.
Right.
So profitability is on track.
Good. And how useful do you find the information collected for the T4C and generated by the Lely system for the way you go about for setting up the feeds?
Yeah, the information from the T4C is absolutely fantastic. It allows us to monitor and record everything daily, weekly, monthly, and eventually yearly.
Yeah.
Helps us, in daily, looking at daily production, the minutes of eating is essential to this high production as well.
So you're collecting eating minutes off the collars, which is the activity in that for rumination. So you see dips and peaks in the collars, and the quality of the forage is being fed and increased production as well.
And when you see those dips and peaks, and the cows have been very good. Their eating minutes are very high.
Very high in level and stable.
Stable. And when you do see a wee dip in the minutes of eating, you can see a dip in the production as well. So it's the information is absolutely is key to the whole profitability of the job as well.
Yes.
It is. To be able to record your service dates, your PD dates, even your calving dates.
It's all key to fertility, calving index, days in milk, everything like that. That's good. Well, thank you, Matt. I'm sure with your help and advice, the Campbells are in safe hands for the future. And I'd just like to hand you back to Logan now. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. We are now outside the gable end of the robot shed, looking over these fantastic views over to Isle of Arran. Now, Tom and David, I'd just like to talk about the key benefits you've found with the Lely robots. Can we start with herd health?
So in terms of the production and the profitability system is kind of quite key to the health of the animals. So first thing up is hoof health. Since we put that collector in, dermatitis is a fraction of what it was. Also with the foot bathing and the way out the robots, just feel the hoofs are a lot cleaner just with the way you don't have a scraper taking away the slurry around the dew claws. Udder health, the way that it tells you about the cell count and the conductivity is a great aid. You will find mastitis problems sharper and be able to treat them earlier. Quite often go around the shed with a tube of udder mint and just catching ones early. You've also got your rumination and eating minutes, which is a good indication whether you've got the ration right and whether there's slight acidosis in the herd. And generally just having the time available to spend with the cows, that you will find you'll find problems and you'll have time to work with the cows. So you will. And you want to add to that?
No, the information it gives you, the health herd report, lets you intervene more timeously. It doesn't make you a stockman, but it allows you to apply your skills timeously and quickly. So it's like an extra pair. In fact, it's not even an extra pair of eyes. It's having eyes all over the place watching each individual cow. There's numerous cases where we've been able to act on the information that the robot gave us and avoid a cow getting ill rather than waiting till it was ill.
But particular one of that would be the activity alerts that it gives you if there's a activity too low. That shed that's maybe just out of shot is within range of the antenna, which for the heat time and just for the collars basically, and it popped up with a dry cow with low activity, and we could intervene early when she had a wee bit of an issue going on. And it's just as Dad said, catching things early and making a great difference for the health of the animals altogether.
And like most farms, part of the robot is the fact you're reducing your staff. The great thing with the robot, you reduce the staff, but then it gives you lots of sets of eyes watching stuff.
That's right.
There is a part of it that you need to know what the figures mean right enough. There's a lot of figures in there. Same with anything, if you don't know what to do with what it's telling you, it's not much use. So you do have to. But it is very user friendly, to be honest. So.
That maybe comes back down to the ease of management of the machine. How have you found that then with it, really, that with the system?
The T4C is great, to be honest. It's
time for cows, T4C, time for cows.
It's a great, it's really user friendly in the computer. I've also got everything connected to the apps in the phone, which can be a bit of a curse sometimes. You can sometimes spend a bit too much watching, but having all that information at your fingertips is great. With the heat time system as well, popping up on your phone, giving you alerts, and even the X-Link on the robot itself, the actual computer, having the information there when you're working around about the cows. The management's really quite handy. It's good.
I think one of the unforeseen things is actually the network of people that have got Lely robots that share information willingly and helpfully, and if you've got a problem, somebody else has had it before. I mean, there's a group of guys on Lely that share comments, share Facebook comments, etc. And they've given David a huge amount of help. It's a constant learning curve. Life's a learning curve, but I'd particularly like to say Sandra Hodges, Scoots, and Robert Sloan at Darren Law. They gave David a huge amount of support, took time out of their day to point out things that they've learned over there. They've had robots much longer than we have. I mean, there's so much that you can learn from it, and the more you learn, the more you then move on to the next stage of trying to build on that. And I think the network of people that Laley work with are second to none. It's great.
So, just as I was saying, there's also the benchmarking thing where you can go on and you can compare against other people that have got the Lely system, which can be sometimes a wee bit of a downer when you look on and you thought you were catching up on them, but they've added a couple of litres on since you last logged on. But maybe the competitive edge of is great for that idea. And I have found, as Dad's saying, a lot of people are freely to share the information, and it is great, to be honest.
Which probably leads me on to my next one, which is production increase. Really, you've seen that as well too. So
if I'm being truly honest, we've put 10 litres on the cows. I'd like to attribute. I think you would like me to attribute that solely to the robots, but
no.
But the new shed has helped. A limited factor we had was feed passage space. We were quite cramped, and getting the feed intake into the cows was an issue. So having the extra feed passage space plus the 3 times or more than 3 times a day milking with the robots, we've added the best part of 10 litres onto the cows. Yields have went from 9ish in 305 to 11.2, and I'm now getting heifers doing 11.5 plus. And if somebody told me that 5 years ago, I would have told them don't talk rubbish. And it's the production there has been an increase in production.
When Gary came here 2 years ago, past nearly 3, to start talking about it, about the size of the shed, we actually took the decision to make the shed bigger, to allow more space in front of the robots. Because I'd been and seen other robots, and most people that fitted them, retrofitted them to an existing building, always said it was the limiting factor with space. And what we're finding now is, when heifers were in the conventional system, and even 3 times a day was better, but heifers always seemed to get squeezed out when it came to a tight corner. They were the ones that were frightened to get into certain areas. They wouldn't get forward to feed passage. So now we'll get excess feed passage, and we'll get area in front of the robots. You see heifers, a weak calf, that are quite happy to mingle in front of the robots, waiting their turn without any intimidation. So we've got quite a few heifers now that are given extraordinary amounts of milk, and I would never have believed that heifers at 48, 49 litres, not pushing, and not to the stage you think they're going to blow up. They look so healthy, happy, putting on weight, getting back in calf, first time. I mean, I think that's a huge health benefit. You can get a heifer through its first lactation without stress, without injury, without, they're going to go on and become the cows of the future. That's the ones you're going to look after. So.
And then at the end, in talking about production, the heat time system that is on the robots there is tremendous. Having a set of eyes on them 24/7 and picking up silent heats. We've actually taken the best part of a month, actually over a month, off the calving interval. Calving interval down now to about 390, which I'm quite happy where it is. Also, as I mentioned, the shed where the bull and heifers are is within range of the antenna. So we've got a heat time system for our maiden heifers, and we've brought the calving age right down, and we're now about 26 months. So there's still room for improvement, getting it down a wee bit more, and there always will be. And it's just picking one thing and trying to focus on it. And the fertility, the difference in fertility now is tremendous, having an average conception rate of two inseminations per conception, and the fertility was never this level like that before. And as I just said earlier on, it's having the time to deal with the cows, and it's far more enjoyable when you're doing it to a higher standard than what you were before.
Yeah.
And you might be able to disagree with me, but
no.
Yeah.
And longevity of cows, you've seen that as well already. You think you spoke to me yesterday, you said about a cow that wouldn't be here today, but
no, we've an old cow. She's a twin, and when the robots went in, she was 12-year-old. We thought she was in her last lactation, and she was quite fresh, so we tried her again, and she calved there 3.5 months ago, and she's doing over 50 litres at the moment, and she's in calf, which I was quite surprised about because I thought we were going to give her time. But David put her in calf at 50 days calf to sex semen at 13 years old.
Right, so she's in her
14th year, and she's calved to sex semen. She's doing over 50 litres, and I would have said when we put the robots, or putting the robots in, I'm not sure if she was going to see that would be her last lactation. And I've no doubt whatsoever, because she's getting milk 5 times a day, her vessel has actually tightened up. Her mammary system's supporting her no problem. She's looking great, and she's got another year in her at least.
Yeah. Good. There's my next question, actually, not everybody likes talking about it, is really, so profitability and finance. I know we've spoken about this, and
Sure you want to go there?
No, it's something. I know you're quite happy to talk about it, so I just thought we'd run it past you and see what you thought.
Profitability, fine. I mean, it basically will put the yields up, but the feed rate per kilo of milk is still the same. So you're getting more from the same. You've cut out staff, you've cut out the need for staff. So there's all that comes into it. But as I said to you earlier, Logan, I mean, when I look forward 25 years, I'm thinking well retired, 80 years old.
Yeah.
You know, whereas David looks forward 25 years, he's still younger than me. So you've got to, the finance of it and justifying it all, you've got to put it over a longer scale and look at the overall, where are you going to be in 20 years' time if you don't do these kind of things. Yeah. So it's all about giving the next generation the chance to take the next step.
That's right.
But as far as the finance goes, I mean, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the Clydesdale Bank, especially Craig Fulton, our manager, because they're not all, it's not all about whether the bank agrees with you or not, but when the bank tells you they've had experience of other people put in Layla robots and how it's worked for them, and usually business plans come in ahead of target rather than behind, that's quite encouraging. He was very helpful just at how to structure the whole thing, and to be honest, it's all working exactly as we said it'd be, and we will be in front of target. Milk price is always an issue, but you've just got to look at your own margins and do things as efficient as you can. The milk price, but the milk price always has been. You know, but it's working well. I mean, we've did a lot in 20 years. I suppose maybe we have a good track record with the bank, but you know, did a lot, and it's all coming together now. But we'll be looking forward to the gearing slowing down a wee bit though. But there's not a day now we regret doing it, and we did. David was quite keen to get some of what he thought was extras at the time, the ventilated the automatic curtains, the light ridge, you know, doing a bit more finishing off inside the shed. But
it's much easier done at the time.
It's much cheaper done at the time, much easier done at the time, and usually you build a shed, you only regret not making it big enough or not finishing it the way you should have did it, because you never go back to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you know, also having a milk buyer like Graham's that's as supportive and great to work with has been great. Thanks to them for support going through it. It's not something you want to surprise your milk buyer with, is building something like that.
No, that's right.
Dropping in the ocean, and thanks to them for being supportive.
There's definitely an element you've got to have confidence in them, they've got to have confidence in you. So there's a bit of it is partnerships. I mean, your boss Gary talks about partnerships. There's partnerships and there's partnerships, and there's a partnership with Layla because you need you guys to be there when we need you. You need us to pay the bills. We need somebody to buy our milk that we can rely on, and they need somebody that's going to supply what they want. The bank needs somebody they can rely on that's going to pay the repayments. So there is a whole lot of people you've got to bring into the mix when you're planning something like this to make sure that you all know what you're trying to do, and keep telling people and reminding people what you're
keep the wheels turning.
There is a kind of perception out there that certain sheds like that with robots in it, it's going to be, I've heard a lot of the wind thrown about and all the rest of things, but that shed there has been done purely on a commercial basis, no rollover money, no grant, and it can be done as long as you're willing to work at it.
Yeah,
I think that is the key. If you're willing to work at it and make a good job of it, go for it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you're talking about staff there. Have you found, we've not got staff really on the farm, but time saving, how are you finding that you're having some time?
Just on that, we do have one part-time guy there now, Jamie Smith, and he's brilliant. When he's not working for the contractor, he's here helping us. When he's not at uni, and he's tremendous. But being able just to have somebody 2 or 3 days a week and catch up on lots of things is great. Not having to have somebody 365 nearly, and time saving with the robots. The days much shorter. I don't feel you don't have any free time, but your time's far more flexible. So you'll spend more time in the things that matter. You'll spend time in the cows. You'll spend time as long as you want to. You'll spend time in the management of the cows, which then leads into better production, better health. But again, we do have a lot of other things going on here. We do our own arable, with the exception of forage and umbilical slurry. We do our own field work. So there is a lot going on, and it's a far more enjoyable way of working now than what we were starting at 4 in the morning and spending 2.5 hours each end of the day in the parlour. And as I said earlier, not feeling the job was getting done to the calibre it should be or could have been. But like I Dad working away from home at the co-op, we're now running where we'll be able to do 1 1/4 hopefully heading for nearly 1.5 million litres a year with one full-time member of staff. And without the robots, that I don't think that would be possible.
But my wife keeps saying we're workaholics because the time that the robots is freed up has been more than filled with other work we take on and other things we decide to do. So we just did. We weren't going to do anything this year, and so far we've did a bit of draining and we've extended the silage pit and we've laid more concrete and made a new driveway and extended it, and it's still only April. Yeah. So we just keep finding things to fill the day.
That's good. Right, my next question I'll go on to really is reliability. I'm smiling at you, but I want your truth.
My phone's not ringing now, so that's a bonus. Generally, very reliable. I can't say much else. You'll be lucky if we get disturbed through the night, maybe once a month, and that's in a bad month so far. Yes, we're kind of 18 months in, so it's reasonably early doors, but reliability has been very good up to now. If there is any issues, they're always in the phone, and generally the guys can talk you through what's going on, and you generally get things fixed over the phone without having to have a call out. Anything else you want to say? I mean,
reliability is like everything else. I mean, it's all down to maintenance, it's all down to management. I'll give you an example. Last week, David got a phone call 8 o'clock at night, critical alert, unit not attaching, and it was a broken pull cord, ACR for those that are still in parlours. And I could kick myself, but I could kick David harder because he saw it before me the week before and thought that needs replaced. So we've now learned that lesson. If you see a slight fray in the cord, replace it when you've got time. Don't wait till it rings you at 8 o'clock at night to tell you it's broken at the most inappropriate time. So there is a bit of that. We like to keep the robots as clean as we possibly can, and when you're doing that, you're looking at things, you're seeing anything that might have slackened off, anything that needs adjustment, anything that might be wearing. It's not really happening yet, but I mean, can't say anything against Lely at Kilmarnock. You phone, you'll get somebody. If they can't talk you through, they're there within an hour. So any breakdowns we've had haven't caused any major issues with the cows. So we're more than happy enough. More than happy enough.
And he didn't pay me to say that, so.
But he's going to.
Did you find any spin-off benefits of it all, really?
What I kind of alluded to earlier on is that the big one for me is the heat time system for the maiden heifers.
Yeah, down another shed.
Down the other shed. It was just a chance that I put dry cows down with their collars and the rumination information was still transmitting. So we tried it in maiden heifers, and having a heat time system looking at them has been a game changer for us. Yeah. We had fertility. The fertility was a lot poorer, as I've mentioned before. In 2018 we had 17 Holstein heifer born, and in 2020 we had 44. So it's been quite a difference. But that's been the major one for me, is the heat time for the heifers.
Good. You got anything else to add for that, Tom? No, you?
Spin-off benefit. You get to be 55, you don't need to worry about alarm in the morning.
Getting up to do the milking. Understand that.
You can go and watch the Six Nations without worrying about milking.
That's quite sad that you spent that amount of money so you can watch the Six Nations. Fortunately, Scotland did okay in the Six Nations to put the robots in, so
that's true.
Worth watching.
Could have bought a lot of season tickets with that money, but hey.
That's overall, it seems that you're very satisfied with your system and results. Can you tell us of why you actually chose Lely technology?
To be honest, I could make a joke say I don't know why, but the honest reason is it's the same as why you buy your Maker tractor or why we used to work with pallet scrapers or whatever. Lely they have been the first people who really concentrated on robots in Britain for the last 25 years, and they've evolved. I've been watching them, I've seen other people them in, but when I saw the A5s working and what they could do, and it was only a fraction of what I know they could do now, that's what really attracted us to it. There's other makes out there, and no doubt they're well developed and they're good makes, but we looked at the people who were working with Lely, we looked at what Lely was delivering for them, spoke to Gary, and it all made sense.
Yeah, good.
I've not made a secret of it. I wasn't actually sold in robots 3 or 4 years ago when I went to some of the college visits that we went to. Some of the guys at college will watch this and take the rip at me saying that I said robots will never catch on, but no, Lely, just as Dad said, they've been the leader in this country, and the robots are great. So
and people say, you know, did you compare in price, and you know, Laley's expensive and others aren't as expensive, but it's no different than the milk parlour we used to have or the tractor you've got. Actually, the purchase price isn't the end of the game, it's only the start, and it's what does it cost you per year for the time you own it, and that right back to what is it worth when you trade it in for a newer one.
Yeah.
What does it cost you every year to service, how reliable is it, you know, so you could get a cheaper deal for other ones, but then the service charges might be more, everything else, and it was to be honest, Gary got us convinced, and so far it's been exactly as what he said it would be, so can't complain.
Good.
Yeah.
Right, well, my final question here then for you both, as you have gone through the research, the purchase, the installation, and have now used the system for 18 months, or just over 18 months it is now really, what advice would you give to anyone considering investing in Laley Robotics?
Go and see other people's, and don't necessarily look at what they got right, ask them for the main thing they got wrong.
Right.
And if you avoid everybody else's mistakes, you'll not be far away.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone, there's no many mistakes in that shed, we've only got one that I can think of, was we put in a mixing point with a metal plate in the collecting area.
Mm-hmm.
And we've never had a cow fall and never had a cow hurt, but it gives you a heart stopping moment now and again when a cow slides on it.
Yeah.
Not a major thing, but don't put one there. You know, it's not a big thing.
I would say if you enjoy working with cows, go for it, because I can spend all day in that shed working with the cows, and that's what I enjoy. If you're a proper stockman and enjoy working with cows, go for it.
And there's one cow in there that epitomises that, number 49. As a heifer, I would have put her into that category I talked about earlier that probably got intimidated a little bit. She was a bit lean as a heifer, she didn't calve proper conditions. A second calf was a bit lean again. She went into the robots as halfway through her third lactation. She's now calved into her fourth lactation, and she's blossomed into a cracking cow. And that's down to the system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that cow has benefited, and that's what it comes down to. Is if you want to look after your cows to the best you possibly can and really enjoy looking after them, look at robots.
Thank you very much, Tom and David, for your time. It really is very much appreciated. I'm sure anyone with interest in dairy farming will have gained a lot from your experience. That wraps up our virtual farm tour part of this webinar. So we move now to the live Zoom, where our contributors will be available to answer any further questions you may have. Thank you.